Welcome back to the AC Pulse. I'm Amanda Corrales, and today we're talking about vision. Because when you dream too big, build too bold, and do not ask for their permission, suddenly you're the risk, not the system, not the status quo, you. This episode features a conversation between me and a representative from the Gates Family Foundation. A call I entered with hope and left with receipts. We want that too. We just want to build a good foundation to create more sustainability in our arts, our culture, and just the archiving of our current history. The revival is really meant to supplement housing, food, sustenance. A lot of our artists here, and I'm sure everywhere, have a struggle in maintaining the basic needs, the foundation of how they can thrive as an artist, and really flipping the script of struggling or starving artists into a more sustainable, wealthy, in a holistic sense for artists, and hopefully eventually monetarily, right? Because that's where we're at in society and what sustains how we operate. She goes on to tell me, point blank, we don't fund down payments. We don't fund leases. And just like that, the window of possibility slams shut.
Great. And then, Amanda, so it sounds like this project is evolving compared to the budget that you submitted to us. And I don't know if you took a look at that application. So the capital to us is bricks and mortar, land, not so much any of the startup costs. I know they're important, but that's just not where our funding lies. So none of the startup costs, kind of none of the staff admin time outside of maybe like the grant writing for the capital pieces are soft costs that we would consider. So obviously the $299, are you fundraising pure cash for that? Is there some financing component to it? And then AJ, say your last name for me, Amanda.
Excuse me? Really? And do you hear how she's like talking to me? And the way she like demanded my last name? She wasn't even gonna try. She didn't ask. There was no consent. It was just like, say it for me, bitch. Do you hear that contradiction? Again, with that like interrupting thing, you know, like, why am I in this meeting if you don't want to hear from me? They won't fund the path to ownership when I'm clearly laying down $120,000 in equity in my personal home. And that's the conflict of interest. Translation, stay in your place. Using my own equity, my own real estate license, my own savings, and that's her problem. Because the more self-sufficient you are, the less control they have. It's not conflict of interest, it's conflict of control. Because when artists own the land, we're no longer renters in their narrative. This episode of the AC Pulse is brought to you by Perceived Conflict of Interest. Trademark. The nonprofit board game where you do all the work, bring all the value, take all the risk, and still lose. Roll a 6. Denied. For trying to own your own land while brown and brilliant.
Roll a 2? Oh no, sweetie, you're too broke to be fundable. You should have come back with generational wealth and a white fiscal sponsor.
Roll a 4.
RedLine already got the grant.
and the gas stipend and the toolkit contract and the speaking engagement and the keynote. Perceived conflict of interest? Trademark. Where merit doesn't matter, labor is invisible, and equity is a performance. Play to lose, lose to play. Let's keep going.
Kind of want to talk through those pieces and the perceived conflict of interest are kind of the things that
Sure.
probably wouldn't fund. Like you being the executive director, you being the owner of the property, we wouldn't fund you to purchase the down payment. We
Correct.
would fund Avant-Garde as an owner of the property, but at the same time, we don't fund lease because that's just an operating expense to a lease rate, and our mortgage payment is a lease piece. So I don't think dollars would be available, Amanda, for the down payment piece since you, outside of Avant-Garde, not Avant-Garde itself, are purchasing the property. So $35,000 for structures, housing structures. Is that still a rough guesstimate?
Why does she keep telling me about a down payment when I just said to her, I've already raised that? Not to mention, it's not a capital expense. Correct.
So overall, maybe rule of thumb, where what we're looking at here, it's 35, maybe at most 60,000 for actual Avant-Garde investment as a 501c3 is separate from Amanda's investment in this property is around 60,000.
Yeah.
Maybe, to us right now in Front Range, 60,000 is not a comprehensive capital campaign to us.
Y'all heard that, right? Translation: we don't fund small projects because they're not big enough, but we also won't give you enough to make a big project possible. It's gaslighting in grant speak. If you dream small, it's insignificant. If you dream big, it's unrealistic. If you fund it yourself, it's a conflict of interest. And if RedLine does it, it's a visionary. Come on. Okay.
It's not going to be competitive. The applications we're getting are building a whole new building, doing a land purchase. We do have another application. We have had applications in the past where the building owner is also the nonprofit, kind of similar to yours. The building owner is also the nonprofit operator, is also the board, is also the executive director. Those, we prefer more of a separation between the governance of the 501c3 and the building owner.
Let's break that all the way down. She openly admits they've funded orgs in the exact same structural position I'm in. But because I'm the one doing it, it's suddenly a perceived conflict of interest. And I hear it. I don't talk like them. I don't sound like them. And I definitely don't look like them. And then she wraps it in, we prefer more separation, as if it's a best practice, not a selective enforcement. This is peak gatekeeping. They fund it when it's someone they already trust, look like, and is a representation of who they are. Translation: we've made exceptions before, just not for you. It's a velvet rope, it's invisible criteria, and it's access dressed up as process. We've had applicants just like you, but we didn't treat them just like you.
Support, we don't really have anything in the arts. Our funding is more geared towards K through 12 education, community development around equitable community assets, and that looks like revitalization of rural downtowns, not so much direct investment in some art. Like we've invested in RedLine for, what's the wonderful woman's name that runs RedLine? Louise, to go around, like everybody's tapping on her. How do you build artist residencies in different communities? And she's in her car driving all over the state to give advice to all these cities that that want to do this. So we invested a little bit with her so we can build some economic development in rural parts of the state, right? And compensate her for her time.
The Gates Foundation funds down rural downtowns. That's not a zip code. That's not a district. That's not even a typo. That's a nonprofit fever dream of gentrified frontier towns where artist-led equity lives in a window display and nobody rents. And just when I thought the hits were done, she tells me they already funded RedLine to advise communities like mine. They funded the consultant. And that's operational money, again, saying in contradiction to what she's saying that they don't fund. We're the builders. They gave RedLine the gas money, but we're the ones doing the driving. This isn't a failure. It's a reveal. They don't want new models. They want familiar faces and controlled narratives. But the revival, it's not pending. It's happening with or without them. And at this point, definitely without them. Tune in tomorrow for part 2. Dear Foundations, we're done explaining ourselves. Exclusive content and the full, uncut conversation at patreon.com/the AC Pulse. And remember, this isn't failure. It's an exposure. They don't want innovation. They want institutions that look like them, led by people they can predict. They don't fund risk. They fund replication. But the revival was never waiting on permission. It was never asking to be understood. And it sure as hell doesn't need to be funded to be real, because we're not pitching dreams. We're building futures. And every no is just another brick we won't owe them for. The revival isn't pending. It's already breaking ground without them.